This video has been a video that I've been thinking about filming for a while now, and if I'm being 100% honest, I just haven't been brave enough to do it. You see, in the middle of all of the social unrest that happened in mid-2020, there was something that I heard. I don't remember where it came from, but it was, or I may have read it, doesn't matter. Anyways, it said, "Dear white people, we need to hear from you, even if you don't know what to say." Since I have read that, I have tried to be more intentional in having uncomfortable conversations. I've tried to be more intentional in not asking my Black and friends of color to explain things to me, but instead doing my own research so that I could have these conversations and come at it from a point of humility, but also not having to be taught as much. And the reason why all of this is the reason why I'm passionate about all of this is I grew up in the Deep South, Louisiana, and many times you don't understand how your upbringing impacts you until you're not there. I started working at a ski resort in New Hampshire whenever I was maybe 21, and I was working at the top of the lift with a Black man from South Africa, and we were having conversations. We were friends, and I really admired and respected him. I thought he was amazing. He was incredibly intelligent, spoke like 500 languages. I mean, it was insane how many languages this guy spoke. And he asked me to do something, and I responded in a way that was very commonplace for my family and how I grew up. It was just a teasing comment. Today, I know that that comment is not okay. Then, I didn't know. He went very quiet. And whenever I looked at him, I'd realized that I had done something that was wrong, but I didn't know what. And so after a few minutes of the uncomfortable silence, I asked him, did I do something wrong? And he explained to me what it was like to be a Black man in America, especially since he came over here as an adult. He had only been here for about 18 months. There was a big difference between what he experienced versus what he expected to experience. That was the first time that I learned about racism. I had heard the terminology before in the same way that I had heard the terminology sexism, but I didn't really understand what it meant. And even though I didn't know it at the time, that was the first time I uncovered my unconscious bias. In that moment, he could have chosen that I was just this crazy white girl and he could have written me off. Instead, he met me with compassion and he educated me, and he understood that I wasn't coming from a place of hate. I was coming from a place of ignorance. That moment changed my life. And I became very passionate about uncovering all of the other unconscious biases that I have, because I don't want to intentionally or unintentionally hurt people. And so today, I figure it is African American Month. I need to put on my big girl britches, and I need to have these conversations that have been rolling around in my head. So please know that I am still coming to this from a place of humility and sometimes ignorance. I don't know what to say, but I'm going to do my best, and I hope that you will bear with me. So, and I'm going to be using a lot of notes. So when we talk about unconscious bias, the one thing that I think is really fascinating about how the human brain works is when we look at something, we are breaking down millions of data points. Millions, but we only have the ability to truly pay attention to about 40 of them. And some of us, like, I can pay attention to like 2, not many at all. So the way our brain breaks up this information is, imagine that your brain is like a filing cabinet. And when you see something, you immediately file it away to what you already know. So when I see somebody that looks like my father, I remember one time very much I saw somebody's gentleman who's had hands that are very much like my father. I immediately filed it away into I like him. I trust him. even though I had no idea who he was. When I see a group of teenage cheerleaders, I immediately file that away into they are not safe because I was bullied in high school by a lot of female cheerleaders. And so that is how the filing system works. That is what we mean by unconscious bias. Our brain has taken over all of this information, and we immediately go into how we feel about something based on stuff that has happened in the past that have nothing to do with the person or individuals that are right in front of us. So unconscious bias, the very first step is understanding that we all have it. And if you say you don't, you're lying to yourself. We all have it. It's up to us to understand that we do have it, try and figure out where it's at, and minimize the damage as much as possible. So some of the areas of unconscious bias that have been recorded. Tall men make 9 to 15% more than short men. As a culture, we tend to like tall. We tend to value height. Blonde women, on average, make about $870 more a year than their brunette or redhead companions. Thin women make more money than heavy women. Not really a surprise, but thin men make less money than average or slightly overweight men. Fewer female CEOs. Okay, so this one blows my mind, y'all. There are fewer female CEOs for Fortune 500 companies than there are male CEOs named John. Now, why is this last one important? When I became a recruiter, I had to stop looking at names. I would intentionally avoid names because one of my unconscious bias, when I saw an ethnic name, it was an immediate, not dislike, but there was more attention I paid to the resume than if I saw a resume with a white or Anglo name. And so I realized that it was an unconscious bias. Luckily, I saw somebody who talked about that particular one, and I'm like, I wonder if I do that. Looked into it. I did. And so once I realized that I was doing it, I stopped paying attention to names. I would look at the application, and then I would look at the name. And the only reason I looked at the name is because I needed to know what to call them when I gave them a phone call. Knowing where your unconscious bias is, knowing where it probably is going to be one of those important pieces. Now, how do you determine where your unconscious bias is? Or where it might be? The fact that I come from Louisiana, that was a good clue that there were probably some racial unconscious biases that I have and still probably have. There was also some sexism bias that I had. I couldn't think of the intelligent way to say that, so we're just going to say the sexist unconscious bias. And I caught myself in it a lot in the beginning. I've gotten more comfortable with that one. There was some bias that I have about wealthy people versus poor people. Knowing where the bias, the unconscious bias might be, allowed me to be better at predicting where it would show up and trying to get in front of it. Now, why is it important to know where it's at? It's because when we have it, we're making decisions that we're not intentionally making, but we think we are. So how can we reduce it? Well, some of the steps to reducing it is, again, knowing where your blind spots are likely to show up and then being intentional in reducing the qualifiers, being intentional in reducing the impact that the unconscious bias can have, such as the way whenever I spoke about the ethnic names versus the Anglo names. Now, if you are still here, thank you very much. I hope that you learned something. This is something, while I don't talk about it a lot, I am extremely passionate about. And if you ever want to have one-on-one conversations, I would love to have them. Because I think these are conversations that need to be had. These are important. And we'll be doing another one next week. But I have some homework for you. There's going to be a link that's going to come up shortly. And if you don't mind, if you want to learn more about this, then go to the next question Brene Brown was a guest on The Next Question. It's an amazing show. It's not really a podcast because they video. Anyways, it's amazing. You need to check it out. But the one with Brene Brown really, really helped open my brain up to a lot of things. Thank you very much for tuning in this week. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget, you got this.